Headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Let's talk to the Senior Policy Advisor at the IEA, Sam Collins. Good evening, Sam.
Good evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining me. That's extraordinary, isn't it? £400 million for management consultants. These are people who come into offices and sort of try to tell companies how to run them more efficiently, how to use the workers more effectively, etc., etc. I mean, I guess they have their use. Before the pandemic, the Department of Health used to spend $10 million a year on them. That sounds to me a lot, but it's within the realms of reasonableness. But £400 million in a year, that's grotesque.
I'd like to say I'm surprised, but it's just so par for the course with how incredibly bad the NHS is at spending taxpayers' money. I mean, I did a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation before I came on, and the national insurance increase that everybody's going to feel in their back pocket in April, that's almost 10% of this was last year spent on management consultants. It's just mad.
Really, really mad. And we mustn't confuse the Department of Health and Social Care with the NHS. But the NHS, during a similar period of time last year, they spent £285 million on consultants. An honourable second.
It's amazing, isn't it? You would think that in that case, what on earth was the Department of Health and Social Care spending the other, £150 million on management consultants for? If the NHS, which you would think would be the largest part of their budget, is only spending two-thirds of that.
And so these consultants, these management consultants, don't come cheap. I've been around them a few times. I've been in offices when they turn up, and it's always a mystery what they actually get up to. And very often they seem to come for about a month, and they're in huddles with the bosses and pointing at desks here and members of staff there, and then they leave, and absolutely nothing happens. But last year, NHS Test and Trace, which is funded by the Department of Health, they were paying at one point nearly 2,000 consultants, some of whom were on £6,000 a day. I mean, this goes beyond laughable or grotesque or obscene. It's almost a criminal waste of taxpayers' money, isn't it?
It's just unbelievable. And the fact that you've got the NHS and the Department of Health and Social Care continuously coming back to the government and saying, we need more money, we can't. I mean, the fact that you can't see your GP in many cases, even now, 2 years on from when the pandemic began, because there isn't enough money to catch up with all of the huge backlog. I mean, all of these things that they can't do because there isn't enough money, and yet they're spending this kind of, hundreds of millions of pounds on management consultants, which, as you say, I mean, the impact that they have in the office and in the workplace, or a real workplace, is pretty minimal.
And check this one out. This is we're laughing, Sam, but it is no laughing matter. No. But you have to laugh or you'd cry. At one point, the government brought in a series of consultants for advice on how to end the use of consultants. They did that.
You're right. You do have to laugh or else you cry. I mean, there's a scene in The Death of Stalin. I don't know if you've seen it, where one of the characters says to the other, "I'm smiling, but I'm very furious." And I think that's how most people listening to this sort of news will feel.
And we always, in these kind of conversations, Sam, I've spoken to many of your colleagues at the Institute for Economic Affairs, who take a keen interest in the NHS, as we all do. And we always come to this point where we say, this is all mad. And we know how much the NHS pays all these middle managers, never mind management consultants, middle managers on the staff. I think it's something like nearly 700 of them get at least £150,000 a year or more. We are throwing £200 billion a year into the NHS money pit year after year after incredibly expensive year. And the NHS is a dysfunctional organisation that doesn't work properly. When is this government or any government going to have the guts to say we've got to have a root and branch reorganisation of the NHS?
It can't come soon enough. I mean, you probably can tell from my accent, I'm not born and bred in England. You know, I was brought up in New Zealand. We've got a completely different health service, and also I presume, Sam, you haven't been allowed to go home for a couple of years to the hermit kingdom. No, I haven't, and it's very unfortunate. But that's what you get for electing a Labour League government, I suppose, in New Zealand. Yeah. But to come back to the point, the thing that I found most jarring when I moved here, it was right before the London Olympics, and it was the idea that you would celebrate your health service as part of your Olympic opening ceremony. And
dancing nurses, you remember?
It was incredible. I've never seen the like. I mean, the idea that you would do that, you know, you would celebrate in interpretive dance, the, you know, HMRC. It's just incredible, and so I can't understand why we do it for the NHS. We need root and branch reform. We need to look at the best from people always compare the United Kingdom and the United States of America, and that's just such a ridiculous comparison. Well, we should be learning. Sorry?
I mean, you know, people in this country, they recoil in horror at the very idea of even an iota of privatisation of the NHS. I don't. I think we should start thinking about that. I mean, it's interesting what you said about the Olympic opening ceremony, and your voice as someone who's not from this country will be fascinating on this, because at the heart of our problem with the NHS is our deification of it. We worship it. You know, as you say, dancing nurses. Look, isn't our NHS wonderful? Keir Starmer hardly ever gets through a sentence without saying our NHS is amazing, it's the envy of the world. Here's the deal, Keir. It's not amazing, and it's not the envy of the world. If we stop treating the NHS like a religion, like the national religion, perhaps we can get real about it.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think people in Britain need to understand that, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, the NHS, no one comes over here from a reasonably developed country and says, oh, well, the NHS is so amazing. The thing that people are impressed with when they come over here is the private system. You know, and look, don't get me wrong, there are things that the NHS does do well.
The doctors and the nurses are great, but they are working.
Exactly.
But they are working for a dysfunctional organisation that, by the way, gravely let this country down during the pandemic, during the COVID crisis.
Quite so, and we really need to have, as you say, look at a root and branch reform and take the best from around the world and start actually treating our people properly in the United Kingdom. I mean, I think this was a few years ago now, but cancer patients, if they'd been treated in Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, we're talking tens of thousands of people who would have been alive then that weren't, because they were treated by the NHS because of our terrible cancer survival statistics. And, you know, this is people dying. This is people's lives. And you're right, it isn't funny. And even though we laugh about the NHS losing money, there is nothing funny about the impact on people's health and well-being that a system like the NHS has.
Absolutely. In the meantime, Sam, I'm off to get myself a job as a management consultant on £6,000 a day. I'll see you in the queue for the job interview. Good to talk to you, mate. Thank you very much.